Hot Summer Nights is a 2017 neo-noir coming-of-age crime drama film written and directed by Elijah Bynum, starring Timothée Chalamet, Maika Monroe, Alex Rowe, Maya Mitchell, with William Finchner and Thomas Jane.
Sending me away for the summer. What a cliche.
So you're from here?
Yeah, wait. No,
Okay.
Ew.
Hide this. You get high?
Can you take me home?
this look she gave me, man. Hey,
Hey, yourself.
I was hoping you'd show up.
Guess who got lucky?
I can't get her out of my mind. What would you say if I told you I wanted to start selling weed? What's this one?
That's a zip. More people bought these, my life would be a lot easier.
We should sell more of those. The problem is we're dealing dime bags to teenagers. We need customers who buy in bulk.
You didn't know how to use a bomb, and now you're trying to tell me how to flip weed? I have something you've been looking for.
How do we know you're not cops?
That's a good question.
Cops can't do that. Sit down.
This is gonna be more money than either of us have ever seen.
They want more.
You're not caught up in anything shady, right?
Daisy, sweetheart, play something celebratory.
Happens every summer. When the air's so heavy you can't breathe, the nights turn long and sleepless. When you long for cooler times, you know what it is. It's gonna tear you apart.
Can't hold on to everything.
I think some things you can.
Then I hope you're good at being hurt.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm your host, John the host, and today we are talking about not a cult film. What? That's right. We are not talking about a cult film today. So that is the disclaimer. But hopefully by the end of this quick review, I could convince you that maybe it should be. This might be one of those diamonds in a rough modern classics that kind of get pushed out there and maybe forgot about a little bit, but hopefully later, like a good time capsule or a fine bottle of wine, we could kind of uncork it and really appreciate it later on, because Hot Summer Nights wasn't really critically received very well, and it made pretty much no money. I think only $240,000. But this was released on DirecTV and the movie theater simultaneously. I think this was like DirecTV's attempt at doing like a Netflix original or something like that. But I don't have the budget numbers on this, but it only making $240,000 in the theater could have been because of that simultaneous release on the digital platform and the theatrical release. So this is the directorial debut of Elijah Bynum, who I don't really know too much about. But once I found out that this was a directorial debut and it was something that this gentleman wrote as well, I was absolutely blown away, because this film feels so competent. So this film takes the structure of like a teen coming of age film, like your traditional Adventureland or Superbad, and a little bit of Mean Girls in there, but it also throws in some Tarantino level violence, drug use, profanity. Then it frosts that cake with like a Nicholas Sparks icing level of schmaltz, and it yields something that could be a little bit sloppy for some, but I found completely entertaining. The cast is as eclectic as the plot lines in this film. You have a scream queen in Maika Monroe, an Oscar-nominated rising it guy with Timothée Chalamet, some old guard character actors like Thomas Jane and William Fichtner, and the rest of the cast is a mixed bag of like Disney Channel stars looking to step up into more serious roles, and then just some other kind of like D-listers. The performances across the board are a little bit uneven, but it's not so much that it like takes you out of it, because the decision to kind of put these all-stars, and for someone that's making their directorial debut, having access to these like rising stars really paid dividends for the film. This movie is absolutely gorgeous to look at as well. Every frame looks like it could be the key poster for the movie. The colors are almost hyper realistic, akin to like a Nicholas Winding Refn film. There's a lot of Drive vibes also in here. There are some sunset shots that look like the poster of Endless Summer. It captures perfectly that kind of late 80s, early 90s teenage summer vibe. It has a lot of like good insert shots, good shots of the sunset, but they kind of crank up the color on here where it almost bleeds at the edges, almost like a Punch Drunk Love, where everything just seems like hyper realistic. The film centers around a group of kids that are, you know, experiencing that one major transformative summer that seemingly every teenager goes through, myself included. Whether it be like your first kiss or just first experience with anything, we all look back on our lives and it's that crossroads summer where you're just kind of like ending the chapter of being like a traditional child, and you're getting pushed towards, you know, kind of being an adult, where some of the things that were important to you as a young teenager or a kid aren't as important to you anymore, and now you're taking your first next step, and everything's super scary. The whole, you know, a lot of firsts is captured perfectly in this, and it's doing that traditional coming of age summer film, but also mixing in all these crazy things. It takes a very dark turn, like I said, adding this like drug underbelly and this criminal underbelly. So Bynum definitely puts that brutal twist and mutates that standard premise so well, with adding those kind of crazy levels of tension and violence and all these things. So everything's just ramped up to a 10, which is kind of fitting because it's running parallel to the actual like Hurricane Bob from the 90s that hit the Massachusetts area. They kind of wiped out a bunch of things, and the plot line and our characters are kind of growing and failing and making all these choices, while also this like actual hurricane is like in the backdrop also. So, you know, that could come off as a little heavy-handed, and probably a lot of critics thought so, but I just liked the symbolism of both, where everything was just so nice and wholesome at first, like the calm before the storm, and then everything just kind of hits at once, and our characters have to deal with all this personal conflict with actual conflict as well. Another thing technically that this film does so well is the editing is just so crisp, so clean. It knows exactly when to do flashback shots. It uses inserts so well. It shows you exactly what you need to see and what you need to focus on. Like I said, the framing is perfect. When it's showing a landscape or a sunset, you just get to see the most beautiful version of it. When you're getting dialogue back and forth, that's even shot super interesting, and it just cuts so well and so clean. There's a moment where one of our two characters are kind of like hooking up, and she just like runs into the boy's bathroom and starts kissing him, and just like this little insert shot of him, like his back foot going and stepping in the urinal, which kind of sounds really gross, like how intense and how passionate like you could be at that age while you're experiencing these things for the first time. And there's a lot to do. There's a lot of night shots, which are not easy to shoot. There's a storm going on, so it's like dumping, and I'm talking about a huge like category whatever hurricane, so it's dumping literal buckets of water on our actors while they have to act through that and emote through that, and they were like just down for whatever, which is what sells this movie so much for me, is the actors, whether this is a straight to DirecTV film or not, they gave it their all, and you don't have slouches here, so that's probably what elevates this. My biggest complaint about this film is for the first 25 minutes, you get that real strong, snappy, funny dialogue like Judd Apatow, like a Superbad, or even a Mean Girls. There's a lot of homages played to Mean Girls, where it's like taking different people's commentary about these characters, which is, you know, a lot of people would say it was a straight ripoff. I see it as an homage. I think it's fine. But after that, like 25 minutes to 30 minutes, it's like devoid of any humor, and all the levity just gets kind of sucked out of the room. And I'm not saying that I needed like a joke or a yuck fest. I wasn't trying to watch Superbad 2, but it laying down the groundwork for a little bit more levity to it, and then them like just ripping it out for the rest of the movie, it just felt tonally off kilter. It just, and I understand, like, everyone's super innocent, everyone's having a good time, it's the start of the summer, and then as it goes, kind of like this like Requiem for a Dream style arc through the season, it gets darker and darker, and there's less to laugh about. But it's just such a like a brisk like turn. It's like jumping into a cold pool, and it just like it was like a tonal shock. But again, not a deal breaker. I said a lot of the critics complained that this was just a straight up ripoff of some of these films, which I think it was just a nice blending of influences and originality. Mr. Bynum was able to, you know, be original and tell his story with taking, you know, enough from the cinematic buffet to make it interesting. This is a period piece. This is set in the 90s, but the most prevalent you get that vibe from is from the score. If the score wasn't, you know, 90s hits, then maybe it wouldn't have come through as much. But you know what? Most films, you know, sometimes when you do a period piece, you're making that like period be in your face, and that's one of the main characters, where this is just more of a backdrop. Like the era is just kind of there to move the story along and to show certain events that happen along this time. Like, and when they do kind of force feed it, it feels force fed. Like there's a lot of Terminator references that just feel out of place. Like one of our characters is going into a very tense situation, and then he like leans down the car and just does the "I'll be back" thing, and I'm like, I see what you're going for, and yes, you still want to remind us that we're in the early 90s, but some of it just kind of is a little bit ham-fisted. Is this as good as its peers, like I said, like in Adventureland or something like that? I don't think so, but again, I think that it is definitely rewatchable. It is tons of fun. It is gorgeous to look at. It deserves more recognition than it got. It deserves more love than it got. And if you like any of those type of films like I do, I am a sucker for coming of age films of any decade, of the 80s, 90s, 2000s and beyond. I just love that kind of feeling and emotion, and it's not always easy to execute it and not come off too schlocky or too schmaltzy, which this one kind of, you know, gets right to that very razor's edge. I think that this one is a complete success. You could go out and rent it on Amazon Prime for a few bucks, or if you have like a Showtime subscription, it is free with your Showtime package, at least at the filming of this very review. So that is my quick thoughts on Hot Summer Nights from 2017. I would love to see anything that director Elijah Bynum comes up with next. This script was one of the ones on the blacklist for a while in Hollywood. That means it wasn't like blacklisted, like no one wanted it. That term is quite the opposite as far as scripts go. It's like the most liked or wanted screenplays that are just kind of on the shelf that haven't got made yet. And, you know, first time writer-director Elijah Bynum got this thing made, and I think did a bang-up job. So what do you think about it? Is it kind of overrated or underrated? Did you even hear about this movie? It took like, I don't know, last week for me to even know that this movie existed, which with this kind of a cast, that's kind of tragic. And that's, I look for these things. So I am not surprised at all if you haven't even heard of Hot Summer Nights, but I implore you to go check it out if you're a fan of those teen films, those teen coming of age films with a little splash of Tarantino gruesomeness. I think this one really hits the mark. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, you could do so at The Cult of Films. You can follow me personally at John the Host. I'll be uploading this review on all your favorite podcasting sites like iTunes and Spotify. Leave us ratings there, please. Until next time, I'll see you next summer.